All right, let's kick into it. We're a few minutes into this game. Nothing has really been missed. Hopefully, something entertaining down the line, though, because we've got LoueMT going up against someone who I'm not really sure of the identity of in the green. China versus Ayyubids here. Now, this account going up against Louis is a fairly competent one. I've seen this one around before. I think... Was this a rank 40-ish account? Let's have a look. Okay, 171st. They have sunk a little bit. But Ayyubids versus China is not a bad matchup, right? I feel like Ayu plays really quick. A little bit too quick for China. Because China wants to like boom 2TC. And the issue is just how quickly Ayyubids ramp into eco gathering and then flood the map. Now, admittedly, you will build an eco lead by the time an Ayyubid player techs up. Because usually if you go rush TC versus Ayu, you can get about the same amount of villages as when they tech up. But the difference is going to be you're not going to want to be present on the map at all. And look at that. Yeah, Ufasa, you're correct. It is a very harsh matchup for China. It's just like China usually can handle a decent amount of matchups with aggressive timings just by being very aggressive in eco. But the Ayyubids just swing too fast. The quality of their initial units are really good. And also, if you try to play in the Nest of Bees, which takes ages to get out, you have to remember you're against a Civ that can build siege in the field. Add in earlier than that, the issue that the Barber can protect one side of your base, but you don't want to build units to protect the other, and you're going to be up against a Desert Raider. That's really the sore spot. Desert Raider forces you to commit to things you don't want to have to do. You can't build Spearmen because Spearmen alone aren't going to be good enough. Just run away. So you have to then consider Chuganu, which will have no value down the line. Green. Okay, that is sick. Did you see that? That was sick. So he leads with a scout to see if he's in range. Oh, that was absolutely fantastic. So some other time is going to be achieved here. This is unfortunate. Louis made a critical blunder. He clubbed all the sheep next to the mill, so now he has to go back for an archery range. And this is exactly what is highlighting this bad. You have to go into Chuganu that you know are going to be fully countered shortly. Oh, rough one. And you can't even fake pump, right? Like, it's not as if there's this building that's been suggested and then nothing's been done with it. The thing is, once military wing has been picked, Ayyubids are going to keep generating more and more free Desert Raiders. So if you don't build something to address it, it is going to creep in on you and get kills. On top of that, although you've got Sultanate Dynasty, what you don't have is 2TC here. So Louis is trying to, what, fast castle, I would imagine? The problem with fast castle here on 1TC, I hate it. Because the reality is Song Dynasty won't build you up a big enough lead to overcome the growth wing. And on top of that, because you're going to be playing fast castle, you're not rushing out your base. Right? You're not going to build Palace Guard against Camel Lancers. You're not going to rush Spearmen, try and get out against Archers coming down the line. So you're building Fast Castle to stay alive, but then the Ayyubid player just goes for the Relics. So your only choice here if you're Louis is to try and, what, rush Castle, go Relics? I think that's difficult. If he spams Spearman, Chuganu, maybe, but ideally, optimally, I'd say if you want to win this, you can't play Long Feudal. Because your time to go all in is gone, right? Like, look, you're building racks, archery range, and your opponent's teching up. He already has the outposts on the gold. He's got stables coming behind this. And it is indeed going to be the growth wing. So everything pretty atypical out of green so far. Well, if China goes 2TC all in against Ayu Fast Castle, the problem is he's too late for 2TC. And if you stay in feudal, what do you really do? Right? Because if your idea is you mass Chuganu blob, that takes so long to get online. By the time you mass Chuganu, your opponent's going to have, what, like 10 Gulums or Camel Lancers, maybe a Mangonel to assist. You have to actually reach Castle, I think. It just doesn't... I think China, like, maybe even we need to go back to the ideas of, like, Barbican Rush days. That might even feel too difficult. The problem with a Barbican Rush is the time it takes you to get in place. In theory, your opponent should complete Military Wing and then have a Desert Raider coming out when you're building the Barbican up, right? I'm trying to think if there's a harder matchup for... against Ayyubids, rather. Possibly Mongols. I think Mongols is the most egregious. In fact, I'm looking at the 1v1 matchups right now because I am curious on this. So at the highest level of play, Ayyubids... Well, here's the funniest part, first of all, by the way. Ayyubids are actually a negative win rate. I think the best matchup is Abbasids. What? What? Okay, I don't agree with that at all, but okay. Yeah, honestly, I'm not even trusting the conk stats anymore. Guys, Abbasids versus Ayyubids, Abbasids actually win. I wholly believe that now. I think it's Abbasid favored. With the fresh food stuff change, you go 2 TC and then you go like play Culture Wing into Fast Castle. You can actually beat Ayyubids. Pre-buffs, the Abbasids would lose to Ayyubids all the time. But I don't think it's that simple anymore. I think it's more of a skill-based matchup now. So take up complete. And it looks like we have got Raxes being dropped as well. So this should be Ghoulems plus Lancers. I think you still go for a few Lancers to raid, but the Ghoulems are great here because the Spearmen cannot stand up to them for a second. Louis is halfway on the eco required for a tech up. He's definitely going to have to rush that up. Wolves have not secured any relics. Unfortunately, the spawn was not kind to Louis in this one. Do you think the player maining mastering certain civ matchups causes some discrepancy? There's a lot of things that can cause discrepancies, right? Like a very big one, actually, straight away, in my opinion, is the fact that the matchmaking sucks at high levels. So you get like a Dumu ranking up against a rank 600. You know, no offense to the rank 600, but Dumu could probably pick the worst matchup and still come out with a win, right? That already skews results. It's why you really want to find competitive results. Now, I know that AoE Full World does have some event-based stats, but there isn't I don't think there's a public page that shows all competitive tournaments through a timeline. Really, what AoE4 needs, what AoE4 World would really benefit from doing next is something along the lines of what Dota 2 has with things like Dat Dota and Dota Buff, where you can choose, like, between this period and this period, what are the stats, and it'll pull them all up. And then you can choose a specific tournament, or you can choose that it's a premium tier tournament, and B tier tournament, whatever sort of thing, right? Even Liquipedia has the stats on hand to do that. Good chase down, just cutting down some of these reinforcements. Looks like Louis is still patrolling around the back looking for a target. They are back to being even on raw eco, but remember it's deceptive. Louis has got 4 Imperial officials laid in there. Relic should be being gathered up now. First Dervish is on the way for green. I believe that is going to be the end of Louis' little Vanguard force here. Camel Lancers moving in. Honestly, against this many Spearmen, you don't care. Like, it's 4 Spearmen, you should be able to clear this up. The Desert Raiders are a bit of a mistake. I don't like the green committed them in, because the Chuganu are getting good value there. Remember, there's no ranged armor on these Desert Raiders, and they haven't been upgraded whatsoever. So although they'll clean it up, it's going to cost them a bit more than it should have here. Yeah, especially when you consider those Desert Raiders weren't even attacking, right? Like, for half of that, they were just standing behind the Camel Lancers. I feel like that was just kind of a waste when they could have been raiding instead. Being said, he's going to get on the move now. LoueMT is going to need to get into a good defense force fast. I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at Spearmen with maybe crossbows. You could try and go into Nest of Bees. I just think we've highlighted the issues of that, right? The scale point is slow because you can't supervise, and on top of that, your opponent can react with siege built right outside your base. Ayyubid should have been more aggro by now. He was worried about Chuganu on his economy, which makes sense, right? Like, Chuganu get in here, shred these guys real fast. So it may seem a little bit silly, but he wasn't really missing out his real timing here, right? Like, he's still got Camelot to work with, and he's got extra relics coming home, right? Second Moscow being dropped. So from that POV, it's not too bad for him. He still has the opportunity to raid now without this impending pressure that either hits his economy or blocks the relics. So I think this is fine for green. Louis. About to keep most of the eco alive. Still only 1 TC. I don't expect that to change anytime soon here. What's more worrying, actually, is the fact that this is just the cavalry. The Ghoulems are yet to come, and Louis has yet to build a reaction to them. Maybe 2 TC song would be better. It's the way that most people have been trying to go. The logic is that against Ayyus, you will build a eco lead by the time they get Growth Wing. But you will forfeit relics. I'm actually a big fan of Song 2TC and then you wall the relics because your opponent goes Lancers. It means you can't torch through quick enough, right? So you buy extra time. But yeah, this 1 TC approach, I thought maybe try Fast Castle and what? I don't know what you're meant to do from there. That's my issue. If you Fast Castle 1 TC, like you can rush Scholars, but how are you getting the relics? You have to build feudal units anyway. When's the mid-season patch coming? 2 seasons from now. Well, we didn't say if it was the mid-season of the season or the mid-season of the season. That gets confusing. Louis, credit to him, actually, has started to grab some relics, by the way. Oh, unfortunately for him, the other one has already been yoinked away. So it looks like green will be getting a 4-1 relic split in their favor. And now they have to make a choice. You're either going for 2TC, 3TC, or you're going all in. It looks like we're getting a 2TC build, which is quite intriguing. That does mean that Louis will never be able to eclipse him on economy. The reason why it's a little bit intriguing is typically when you're up against China like this, you don't want to turn it into an economy game, because that means you're playing into their favorable state, right? Like for me, Ayyubids is really all about how they thrive and peak in castle. This is not a civ really designed for Imperial engagements. They can do it. They have some really cool builds. I think the Golems with Mamluk's Bravery are really surprising in the late game. But ideally, you're looking to close out the game in castle or close it early Imperial off of what you got from Castle Age. Yeah, second TC confirmed. I mean, the walls are up, right? So I can kind of see where Green's coming from, that he might be worried that there's a second TC he didn't know about, or that the farm's coming up and there's permanent food. Meanwhile, that temporary food of Green's is going to get blocked out, so Louis marching in. This would be a really good time to consider just maybe one-man Jeanne, make the fight a lot cleaner. Instead, he's just going to A-click it with the Guillims. Tough one here, right? Like, I'm a little bit surprised. I'm wondering if Louis just didn't expect the Guillims. I mean, in fairness, you do reasonable damage against them, especially because of this. What? Oh my... Okay, so this should have been a terrible comp for Louis. He should be losing the game big time right now. But Green made a mistake. The Blacksmiths was never dropped. He's only now getting the first of his Blacksmith attacks, and it's not even the Undermesh. So these Guillims are actually surprisingly flimsy. They're taking 6 damage from each Chuganu. Oh, sorry, 7 damage. No, wait. My brain. 12 damage. Wait, 9. Okay, I'm just going to give up now. It's 9 damage. It's 3 times 3. I don't know where my brain was going there. I was just refusing to clean the whiteboard of mathematics and was adding on to what already existed. Because he's got 4 armor and it's 7 damage, right? So 3 goes through and it does 3 bursts. So 9 damage per Chuganu. That's why they just got dented so hard. I mean, that might cost him dearly. I actually think that's a substantial error being made. You're playing a civ that's all about timing, and you didn't respect your opponent's timing. Nor did you enable your own. So now we're talking about a situation where Louis does have a notable eco lead. He does have a notable military lead. And he's adding in those Nest of Bees, which right now don't have a solution. Undermesh only just got queued up as well. A little bit surprised that Louis isn't trying to commit to the fight a bit more. I actually think he could win this fight quite easily. Guess he's just going to bide his time. Has actually now got the melee armor on the way. It almost just feels like Louis is just giving too much respect to the green player here. He probably expects there to be more troops coming behind. Like, that right there doesn't seem good to me. Like, targeting the dervishes instead of the Gulems, right? In fact, if anything, I feel like you should throw the spears in, let the Chuganu clean up. Maybe he was worried the Undermesh was coming through, which is going to heavily reduce his damage, but either way, it just doesn't just mean you've given over extra kills that don't really need to be occurring. Has at least got a second wave on the way on the west side, though. Yeah, that's what I wanted from Louis originally, right? The issue is if you ignore this group, Spinman always move quicker than Chuganu, so you will end up losing the Chuganu. Green trying to react to some anti-siege. Army now coming in. Green has food issues, right? Yeah, they've got deer gathering on the right side, but the left side's being shut down. Has got a few farms coming in, but big risk here on the back. Green, right now, looking to be distracted. Louis moving in for the food on the right side. This is sick. So it's a multi-pronged assault, right? He's just trying to stab at the food to prop up any sort of bulk army he can get, right? He doesn't want to allow Green to get on the same wavelength as him because the archers will form reasonably well as a backline for the Ayyubids, and the Gulems right now aren't really answered. So pretty quippy little read by Louis. And a lot of idle time here. 22 villages. A third of Green's economy is not working. And guys, despite the fact he went 2TC, you may be noticing that Louis is starting to pull ahead compared to that 2TC build from the Ayyubids. This is not a good look. Yes, the military lead has shrunk for Louis, but the eco lead has bulked. Yeah, and these walls that went up aren't substantial, right? Like, he went for very aggressive wood walls, which doesn't work. Usually when you put walls this far forward, you want them to be stone so they can't be broken easily. Because it's very hard to guard everywhere. This Green is learning very quickly. Louis now coming with the Falcon Punch. 4 Nest of Bees. Well, you wanted an answer to the Ghoulems. It's on the way. Louis with the intriguing outpost drop. I love the fact the wall just kind of griefed him here. But that's going to now be addressed, and Green's in trouble. Food just doesn't really exist in reserves, right? So you aren't able to easily pivot. On top of that, like, your initial wood line is drying up, right? So while you're investing in archers, there's going to be this gap where you have to shift across for new eco. That will mean you'll be a bit slower on getting the counter to siege out. And a keep drop now coming in from Louis. So that was sick. I love that. He builds the outpost first to scout the area and then rushes the keep, knowing he has enough time. And he most definitely does. Green tries to dive in. Not going to be good enough, though. Castle goes up. Necessities are now unanswered. And I can't help but feel this game is close to over now. Louis at home, now with the free farm setup coming in with the granaries. Spearmen have just been a sore fun for him, right? Like, just keeps finding targets. I think the issue here is, like, Green, lack of walls in the right locations and lack of mobility. Sick read by Louis, though. It's kind of crazy the way this one played out. I think Green just went a little bit too lax about this. You're playing against Chinese, and you chose to turn it into an eco game. And that 2TC has paid off for Louis. Whew. Castle drop now coming in to secure a small gold vein. It won't even secure the food. The food's out of range. Louis now looking to park himself in the enemy base. Now keep in mind, there are a bunch of relics here that are probably going to force Green to defend a little bit earlier than maybe he'd like here. Because, like, the reality is if Louis starts sieging down these mosques, he can force a reaction. For the time being, it's going to be a backup. But I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a tech up. Considering the farms are about half set up to where they need to be, that's when the late game eco opens up. On the other side of this, we're talking about a situation where Green has a grand total of 13 farms to their name. It's not really the type of late game economy you're looking for to try and compete with the Chinese. Okay, I'm sorry, what? When all else fails, burn all of your resources. That's the lesson we're taking away today. So what is the thought process with this Tower of the Sultan? If you're going to lose, at least have an excuse? I mean, it's a little bit of a weird one, right? I don't rate it that highly, especially against Palsguard that can just run it down quick. I think Nesta B's can even deal this well. And, like, you're playing against a Civ that can play Siege reasonably effectively from this position. But they're not even going to play fair about it. Louis is just going to go for a deck up. All these small little raids. I mean, someone said it in chat earlier, death by 1,000 cuts, right? And it truly has turned into that. Rainwatcher's right. The other thing that I'm worried about here is, like, gold. Anytime I've seen Ayyubids play late game and look good, it's gold. It's very weird how they're a polar opposite to the Abbasids, because Abbasids, they're not about these spikes off of attack timing. Ayyubids are. And Abbasid's late game isn't about gold, right? Late game Abbasids is about food and wood. Ayyubids comes out the other end. They need those hand cannoneers. They need those Ghoulems. What would you change about the Tower of the Sultan? I'd make it good. So Tower of Sultan is kind of a tricky one, because if you're not careful, it becomes OP. You know what would be kind of cool to see? I'm curious if, like, people would like it or not. Maybe, okay, this is going to be a sick idea, but I don't, like, I think it's going to have to be a different Civ, but I love this idea. Imagine you can deploy it and it becomes like a 6-tower range cannon. But it's like a long deploy, a bit like a Mongol prototype, unpacking and packing. To keep, but that would be a different unit entirely. To, like, make the Tower of Sultan good, it might make it a bit broken, but what I'd say is maybe if you could garrison range units inside, and they would actually be their range units. It's like if you put crossbowmen in there, they'd have crossbowman damage. I feel like that would be way too strong, though. Because, like, could you imagine, like, I stick 20 crossbows in this? The problem right now is, like, you're held hostage by the balance of it around Springles. And Springles is just... Springles to this day feels like a very negative design element in AoE 4, right? Maybe the longer Tower of the Sultan's still, the faster it fires. That could be intriguing, because then you have a balance, right? Of, like, moving versus standing still. It's like your ram attacks get quicker and quicker and quicker. And maybe your Archify increases over time. Like a static redeployment that you get from Streltsy. Because this, the only thing that feels good about them is the explosion. Spear on placement, that sounds a bit bonkers. Three 6-stacks locked in. Age up advantage. I mean, green is dead. I'm not really sure what they think their recovery arc is anymore. I think they are just in limbo at this point. They don't just want to immediately GG because they're 24 minutes in the game. And they're kind of just sitting here basically saying, Louis, you have to finish the game. I'm not just going to leave, right? If you want this win, come get it. And it's, you know, it might seem like they're wasting time to some people, but like it makes sense, right? You're offering up an opportunity for your opponent to make a mistake. Mistakes can always happen and recoveries can always come from them. But in fairness, with the way Louis played this, it would have to be a very big mistake. Yeah, I feel like what this is a perfect educational point on with the Chinese is like we talked about the 2TC build. This was a 2TC build but on a delay, right? Like sometimes it's worth delaying your timings to get value. I always recall like Don's perspective on Eco Wing for the Abbasids actually is a perfect kind of comparative to this. Is that Don would go for the Eco Wing, but he wouldn't build TCs until he built a lead. Logic being, I can always inflate my advantage later. I need to address the threat now that faces me. Once I've addressed that threat, then I can focus on bigger upsides for my Civ. Makes sense, right? Like, you know, if your opponent's building knights, do you just build TCs up, or do you build spearmen first to address the knights? You build spearmen, or you build wolves, right? Something to address the knights. You don't just say, well, I want to get free TC, because that's my ideal situation. You address what's in front of you, and then move forward from there. So, pretty smart read by Louis. I'm not sure if this will be the golden answer to Ayyubids. I feel like there was a missed trick for the Ayyubids where he had a huge advantage at one stage, and then he backed away. And I think he gave the breathing room necessary for Lou to get back in this. But now that we've got Yuan Dynasty online, we've got imped up, almost fully upgraded Elite Pass Guard, there's just no real coming back from this. You're going to be running around your own base like a headless chicken for the next 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes' time, I just don't think there's going to be much base left to run around in. Pass Guard, just moving in. Big siege blob coming out from green. The problem is you're up against shutter triggers, right? So like if Louis just builds 1 or 2 Springolds, you lose it all. In fact, that's exactly what's happened here. You can start marching out, but another cool detail, I love the fact that Louis used this on the front line. Look at his vision on the map. This is so impressive. There isn't a single move that green could have made in this game that wouldn't have gone scoured, wouldn't have gone spotted. It's just blowing up what's left of the Golems. I mean, the siege count has just been shrunk entirely. Spirals are all gone. It's Mango's left over. This should pretty much just be game. Just a small handful of Pass Guard holding this back. Nestabees are now at least going to get dove, but this is the annoyance, right? Clock Tower makes them so much tankier, so much harder to kill. He's got the repair nearby from the villagers, so we'll easily just turn around for another flurry. Green, I mean, dude, he's not even paying attention to his macro anymore. 4,000 wood in reserve just shows you how grim it's getting. GG called. LoueMT, pretty cool build. Curious to see if this is going to be the way for the Chinese to deal with the Ayyubids in general, or if this is more of a slip-up than a success.